A quorum is present, and the August meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee will be called to order. Our topics today are more for information than they are for any decisions to be made unless motions are forthcoming. So we'll start off with a general review of the topics that were selected during our budget process for consideration and our proceedings and in our processes. And Commissioner Coe is here today to help us with the ones that she has been assigned or taken the responsibility for. Commissioner?
Thanks. Unless you really want me to, I wasn't going to go down through each individual item today because there are a number of things that are now kind of grouped together under a completely different process than when we started first talking about that long list that came out of the original Committee of the Whole. But let me run through my list, and then if you have questions about anything on that spreadsheet, then we can back up if that's okay. First of all, we have made a decision to move forward with the implementation of the budget module in STARS. Most of you know that we had implemented financials or a lot of the financial piece, but the budget module itself we had not implemented. We are moving forward with that implementation expecting that to be available early January so that we could use that module for budgeting in the next budget cycle. So one of the things that we'll be doing, and we really just made that decision in the last week or two, we kind of had some timing issues that we needed to work out. What I would like to do in terms of reporting, because a number of the issues that you raised about the last process was about the report itself. And we're going to work with the folks, with the Metaformers folks, to pull some things out of STARS as we move forward with this implementation and bring those reports to you to see if they work for your purpose before we get to the end of the implementation. So we will be asking you along the way for report review. I don't have anything right now because of course we don't have any data loaded into the system or anything like that. But as soon as we get to the point that we could generate a few reports, we will bring those to you for format. So we will be looking at using the STAR system for to do our budget for the 2009 budget. Also, some things that are happening that that would affect the long list is that we have employed management partners to do a management audit of government. There are a number of items on your list that I've passed along to them so that as they do their interviews and bring forward recommendations, they can have your list and their recommendations all together. They've done a lot of work in a number of cities around the budgeting process, so they will be bringing to us best practices. I think those things will help us in the determination of how we want to budget for personnel, because certainly we've had some issues around that and I can never even remember the name of it, but basically it's a personnel contingency calculation. So that and the fund balance, and I expect management partners to be bringing us recommendations on both those issues. In addition to that, the management partners is working with, we'll be working with the folks that will be appointed to the Lexington 2015 Commission that we've talked about, the finance group, some of the council members and some area businesses and other folks to look at our processes and what we can do to improve the efficiency of the financial reporting system, and also look at what our revenue is going to look like at about 10 to 12 years out and how we deal with that. Management Partners has already agreed to handle the research end of that particular project. So we will be working with them on that piece. And the mayor will be making appointments to that commission in the near future, and that will be coming to you. We are moving ahead with the capital improvement planning process. That was part of what was in your document. I have my intern, I think most of you have met, Nathan Phelps, I'm sorry, who's been working all summer on pulling together information about what other people do, other cities do in terms of capital improvement planning, has met with the folks from Louisville and Jefferson County to look at how they handle things, and is also working with management partners on best practices in capital improvement planning. So while we're still planning for the planning, we will be moving that process forward in the next few weeks. Nathan's also working on some of the benchmarking activities that we talked about in our last meeting. He also is working that benchmarking. We're feeding that information to management partners so that we can pull all that information together at one time also. You had inquired about a retirement payout and what we might be facing with the legislation changing, or actually the rules changing by statute January of 2009 for our folks who want to retire at that time. We have run those numbers, but actually I need to do some more work on that before we go any further. Certainly, it's one of those things that will have to be on our list as we enter into the 2009 planning for the budget, because we know that there is that chance for some rather hefty payouts, and also for the fact that we might be losing that much experience from government at one time. So those are huge things that are looking at us that we will have to plan for as we move forward. And finally, you had asked about an actuarial analysis for the Police and Fire Retirement Fund, and we had that scheduled to be presented to Council on September 18th. So the folks from Kavanaugh, Mr. Kavanaugh with McKay Shields, who has done our work, will be with you all on September the 18th. So if you have any other questions about progress or lack thereof, I'm more than willing to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. The fourth thing on our docket today is the finance study, and you mentioned several things about that. Did you want to add anything else to that?
Just 1 minute. Let me look at your...
Finish that one.
I think what all I was prepared to report really is that we're working on trying to get the appointments together.
This is going to be about 15 people?
That's what we're shooting for, 12 to 15. I think if it goes beyond 15, then it's just going to be unmanageable.
But it would be people from the government and the council as well as
yes.
from the outside?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And I'm beginning to contact people. We just, you know, we want to make sure we have a diverse group that covers a lot of the different areas of the county, so we're trying to make sure we have all that in place.
Some people who particularly have radio talk shows think that anytime you have a financial study group, that means only one thing, and that's we're going to raise taxes, but
that's
this
right.
will be more comprehensive than that, I take it.
Well, it's certainly, I don't think the role of the group is to look for ways to raise taxes. It's ways to use the money that we generate more efficiently, and is there another way to structure our taxes for more benefit to the community.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the Commissioner? Thank you. And the second thing on our docket is a report from Mr. Deaton and Ms. Underwood, who have been working with us too on the General Fund Capital Improvement Project. Mr. Deaton.
Greetings. One of the requests that we picked up during the budget process was a question about, we deliver money to a project and you wanted some timely updates on the progress and whether it was done or not. And the information that's contained in here is one of our initial cuts at getting the information back from the division so that we can start doing a quarterly report to you. It is not complete. I need to say that right now. We have not received all the responses. There are lines in there to say whether it was completed at year end or what the status was or if they had any other notes, and we're still receiving those back from the divisions. And we want to expand this to include prior projects and then make sure that we get in there the 08 projects so we have an ongoing report that we can do. And that's about all I have right now, so I can answer questions.
Can you expand a little bit about what's in our packet and tell us what these documents tell us?
The on page 5 is a overview or a recap of the capital projects as we were able to determine them, but based upon particular account numbers for the fiscal year that will end on June 30th, 2007. This report was run about a month ago, and there's been other activities, closing entries, items changing as the accounting department finishes up June 30th, and so these numbers possibly could have changed in the meantime. So on page 5 and 6, it just gives you a big overview. 7, 8, and 9 is another view of that overview, and then you get really the crux of the reporting that we want to really concentrate on. Starts on page 11 and goes through page 32. And these are the items that will go out to divisions. In this particular case, on page 11, this item would go to your administrator of the council, and Jerry Southers, your administrative person there, and they would help us to gather that information on those particular items, whether they were completed, in progress, at the end of a fiscal year. You can look on page 13, and you can see two examples where the first line item for $15,000 was not started and it was not completed at the end of the fiscal year, and then there's a note. And we want to continue gathering these, continue updating these, so that when we present this to you on a quarterly basis, you'll have a history of what's taking place and what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Gordon has requested to speak.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate this information. I had a couple of questions, and I don't really want to belabor all the details here in this meeting, but I did want to ask you a couple of things. On page 11, on the council office capital improvements, is the account title construction street, well, I guess I need to go back. Is this an accounting for the $100,000 capital money that council members had?
Yes, this is the remaining
Okay.
budget. You started with $100,000.
Yes.
It went through one fiscal year, brought forward the budget, the expenses to there, and on June 30th, the ending available budget.
Okay.
So we're slowly whittling it down.
Now, is construction street simply, was that simply selected to encompass everything? Because some of these weren't
Yes.
street projects.
Yes, it's like, you should consider it as a holding account number that we're
Okay.
using it to control and reconcile to.
Okay. And when will, some of these projects were not able to be completed in the fiscal year, so when do you anticipate the reappropriation of these monies?
The reappropriation will take place when the accounting department, and Tina Cole, Commissioner Cole can probably address that, the timing of that. When they have completed their preliminary closing of the books, we will then have an estimated fund balance and bring forth information on reappropriations.
Okay. I know some of these are specific projects in neighborhoods where the neighbors have had to front money. And so can you give us, and I know that reappropriations won't just apply to this category, but can you give us a more specific idea of when we might expect to see the reappropriations?
I wish I could. We hope to do our first soft close right after Labor Day,
Okay.
but I need for you to be patient with me. I don't have a director of accounting, and we are really, really struggling with closing entries because no one in that department had done closing entries except the director. And, I mean, I have people working night and day, and you know, I would hope by mid-September that we would have a fairly strong number.
Are you, well, tell us about the director of accounting. Are you?
I have one
is
that
the
will be coming
process-
to, it is in process. I have someone who has accepted, and the name will be coming to you through the normal process. I guess it's fine to tell everyone. Her name is Mary Pfister, and you may remember she was, she's right now the chair of the Lextran board.
Mm-hmm.
She's controller at Eastern Kentucky University, has a really, really strong background, and I think she's going to fit right in. She's excited about coming. In fact, she sent me an email this morning. She said that her coworkers were asking her to wipe that grin off her face because she's so excited about coming here. So I look forward to her. She plans to start work on October the 1st.
Oh, okay. So we have another month.
She had to
without-
give 30-day notice.
I
so.
see. Okay.
But she's going to be offering assistance as she can prior to coming on board.
Okay. Well, that's good news then, that at least we
I'm
know we
thrilled.
have someone coming.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jim.
Mr. Blevins.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick questions. The first one is completed by year end. There's a column here. What year are we talking about? Fiscal year, calendar?
Up in the upper left-hand corner, it says as of June 30th, 2007. So this particular information would be as of the completion of that fiscal year.
Oh, I see. So, okay, this is not a projected into the future. This is as of that date.
And remember, this is just the first cut. We will be adding 08 information in here. We will be going back and trying to pick up existing, one of the requests out to divisions is give us a list of what your projects from prior fiscal years that you're still tracking money for. And as we get that, we'll be expanding this information.
I want to follow up on what, thank you, by the way. I want to follow up on what Councilmember Gorton was leading to. The completed projects, some of them have funds remaining. What are we going to do with those?
In which division, you're talking about in the council's office or in other ones?
I was just flipping through and saw a couple. I can't find a specific one, but there are completed projects with funds remaining. How are we going to clean?
Those go into the fund balance available and are reallocated.
Right. We've already done that, or that's part of the close that
That
you're in
will
the
part of the
process?
close and part of the upcoming process.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blevins. Mr. Stinnett.
Thank you, Doc. I got a question going back to Linda's comment about the actual capital projects for council. If we have a project that has been completed over the summer months and the vendor needs to be paid, we don't have time to wait till November. I mean, here's work that will have been completed for 5 months if we wait till November. How do we get them to cut a check out of this capital money before we reappropriate it? Is that possible?
If there's already, there would have already been a purchase order out there, they wouldn't have been able to do work. So that vendors are not going to wait for their money based on our closing. When that project was established, there were purchase orders cut. So as long as there was a purchase order there before June 30th, we're going to continue to write checks to vendors as they submit finished products to us.
That's not how it worked with the capital money, and money was, there was no PO, Commissioner, and you may not have known this for some of the projects. And this is reimbursement to PTAs, to neighborhood groups for work that was completed, and they submit us the bill. And once they submit us the bill, then our obligation, as we've already passed on council by vote, is to pay that bill.
Well, yeah, if we receive a bill that's approved by the council administrator or whoever approves in your all's offices, we pay it.
Well, that's not what I've been told recently through the capital
Okay.
process.
I
So
don't
if you
know.
could help us,
I'm sorry, I
I
have
know, no,
no
it's not
clue
your
what you're
fault,
talking
I
about.
understand,
I'm
but if
sorry.
you could help us figure out, how do we get these vendors paid? Because I have an outstanding bill from July that still hasn't been touched, and we need to get some of these vendors paid because they're quite upset, as you can imagine.
Well, absolutely.
Waiting 30, 60 days for their money, and if we wait till November, as has been stated, we would have to get this money reappropriated, we're going to have a mess on our hands.
I apologize. I'm not aware that we have any unpaid invoices other than those that would be just in the current cycle of run checks
Right.
twice a week or something
Well, I
like
think
that.
the issue is this available budget money having it reappropriated in order to cut a check. But if you're saying we can work together to figure out a way to pay some of these and then reappropriate later on, I think that would be a great win.
We'll get on that first thing
Thank
tomorrow
you.
morning. I'm sorry.
No problem, no, not your, thank you.
Are there any further comments from the council concerning this item? Thank you very much. Mrs. James.
Sorry, I'm not logged in. A quick question on page 18, Division of Planning. The account title is Land Acquisition, and there's a budget of 0, expenses of 0, and available of 0. Just wanted to get some clarification on this item.
You have to remember, this is our first cut, and we ran a query, and if it had a 0 budget and an account number, it came up, and we haven't filtered these out. This is what we sent out to the divisions, and we said, do a couple of things. Tell us, is this a valid account? And if it isn't, and the money's been moved out somewhere else, they will send us an email, and we will take it off. So it's a work in progress.
Okay, I'll just watch out for it.
Yeah, I will check this one just to make sure and try to get you an answer.
Thank you.
I would presume then that the committee would like to see how it comes out next month also.
We'll keep you informed as much as possible.
Okay? We can count on it to be on the docket then for next month and get an update. If there is no further discussion concerning this topic, we'll go on to the next topic. Discussion on tax relief for private neighborhoods paying property tax and Kentucky Utilities for the maintenance of streetlights. And I think this was placed in our committee by Mr. Stennett. Mr. Stennett, do you have any comments or that you'd like to make about this item?
Thank you, Chair. Well, there's a couple of issues here, and I'm not sure if we're ready to go through the full-fledged presentation today. We're still doing some work, and I apologize on that, but there is still the issue of neighborhoods who have received LFUCG funds via the developer of the community, usually, to put in private streetlights. And once those private streetlights are installed, they are indeed maintained by a homeowners association or the people that live in the neighborhood forever. And they pay the fee to KU, they pay the fees through property tax as well to us. And I think the question has been raised is, when does that ever stop, if ever, on some of those private neighborhoods? Because they do pay back into the system what they received up front, and their question to LFUCG, and what we need to do is compile how many neighborhoods are actually doing this, first of all. And we have not asked for that information due to several things going on in the Department of Finance. I have not approached Commissioner Coe about doing this yet. So I'd like to postpone this probably until November or December meeting so we can gather that information. I think that would be appropriate with the things going on with the 2015 committee and the management study. They've been under a lot of work up there. So if we can wait till November, that would be my request, sir.
Okay, we can. I live in such a neighborhood, and I may be in the dark because my neighborhood doesn't have any streetlights, but I do recall dimly seeing a check that I got from the Urban County government repaying me for the tax I paid for the streetlights, so it has been done.
Right. Initially, LFUCG gives a lump sum payment to help install them, but I'm not aware of, as you just said, any refund we've given any neighborhoods. And I think there's plenty of neighborhoods, especially in Hamburg and Heartland area and other areas that have paid for their streetlights over the years have not received any money back on that property tax bill. So that's what they're looking for.
Well, I believe I did get a check. Are you aware of this, Ms. Cole?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the issue, but it came up during the budget process, but we need to talk with Bill O'Meara.
Well, we can get together with Mr. O'Meara and flesh that out. I did have a question that perhaps you can answer. The constituent asked me,
I'm about 0 for 3 here now, so, sorry.
which is in this general topic, and that is a constituent was requesting whether the property tax could be paid in installments.
I'm going to really shoot from the hip on this one. I'm guessing it would require action by the council, but what I would encourage you to consider is the more bills you send out, probably the lower your collection rate is going to be. We have a very high collection rate right now on property tax, and if you start spreading those out and sending out more bills, not only does it cost you more to send out more bills, generally, I think what people have found is they don't get as high a collection rate. But I think it's something we can look at. We can see what's going on in some other cities. And, one thing that might be helpful is as we move forward with some of our technology, we're hoping that we're going to be able to allow people to pay for some things online. And so that might be one consideration there, is if we can get online payment up and running for some other things that we're looking at, we might be able to do some things around the property tax too, but certainly we need a lot of attorneys and revenue people at the table to be able to figure that out.
Well, this letter that I received was from a senior citizen on a fixed income.
Right.
And apparently they don't, I guess they could start saving a year before and accumulate that bolus to pay, but also it seemed to me that they could, the bills are generally sent out in October, I think, and the taxes are not delinquent until sometime 3 or 4 months later, so they would have an option of paying 2 or 3 months at least.
Right.
Partially. They wouldn't have to pay it all at one time.
That's right. That's right. But I do think as we move forward with technology, it's something we can certainly look at.
Okay. Appreciate it. Can we put that on Mr. O'Meara's list then?
I'm going to add it to the list, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Maloney.
I need a question online with that. The mortgage companies that are filing bankruptcy right now, they're going under, and a lot of these homes, they pay the end of the year for the taxes. What's going to happen there? Y'all, there's about 3 large major companies that have gone under, and some of them may go under. Does anybody have any idea what is going to happen with that?
I'm sorry, I don't. I could ask Mr. O'Meara to look at our billing, because the billing would go now to the mortgage companies, and to compare that against what we know about which mortgage companies are not functioning right now. We'll take a look at that.
Because some of these, they're paying still, but I just hate to see these folks get punished, and the mortgage company's no longer there, and the money, they don't know where it's going. So if y'all can keep up on that, I appreciate it.
Right. Well, I think the other thing that's going on there, too, that the federal government seems to be looking at that whole issue around
So they're helping
maybe some
whatever
form of bailout, right?
Okay,
So,
thank you.
but we will take a look at that, because it'll hurt us even if we get the money, but it's delayed.
Okay,
So we'll look at that.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any further business to come before the committee? If not, we are adjourned.
the Lyric Theater.
Thank you. Aye.